Part 30. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 292. The Emperor's body was extremely strong. Even a finger of a strong man comparable to the Emperor's could not hurt Emperor Jinming. But under the torture of Nai Chen's words, Emperor Jinming's Dao heart was extremely fragile at this moment, and his defense ability was many times weaker than before. The golden finger that suddenly suppressed him from the sky left him no room to dodge. Boom! The finger fell, and Emperor Jinming's body flew out instantly. Under the strong impact, Emperor Jinming's body fell down the ladder and fell heavily to the ground. And until the moment he fell head first, his ears seemed to echo the devil's whisper. "But you are a virgin. But you don't have a girlfriend." Ah! Almost, if it weren't for forcing himself to maintain his state of mind, Emperor Jinming's Dao heart would have collapsed directly. And at this moment, everyone saw it clearly. Nai Chen stretched out his hand without hesitation and probed into the endless light. He took out a colorful jade that was so dazzling that it was hard to see clearly. That is the treasure that caused the strange phenomenon in the world. In addition to being amazed at Nai Chen for taking it away, the scene in front of them made everyone unbelievable. Emperor Jinming was actually defeated? And it was so easy. With just one finger, Nai Chen crossed the realm and seriously injured Emperor Jinming to such an extent. Even if you know Nai Chen's strength. But no matter how strong he is, it is too outrageous to be able to cross the realm and seriously injure the Emperor like this. I seem to see Nai Chen saying something to Emperor Jinming just now. Could it be related to what he said? What kind of words could break the Emperor's defense? I remember that I seem to have heard vaguely, something about Emperor Jinming being a virgin. What? Emperor Jinming is actually a virgin. What? Emperor Jinming is more than 1,000 years old and he has never even seen a girlfriend. What did you say? Emperor Jinming has never seen a woman since he came out of his mother's womb. The rumors became more and more outrageous. The rumors flowed into his ears, and Emperor Jinming, who fell to the ground, seemed to suddenly hear the sound of his heart breaking. Ah! Suddenly with a wail, Emperor Jinming's short body collapsed to the ground. He was so angry that he almost fainted. After being promoted to a powerful emperor, who would not respect him, and who would dare to disobey his orders. But at this moment, not only did he lose the treasure, but he also lost his face. "Emperor, Emperor, are you okay?" Seeing the tragic scene of Emperor Jinming falling to the ground, the monks buried in the desert came out one after another. Some hid in the quicksand, and some hid in the cave. The desert forbidden land seemed peaceful on the surface, but Emperor Jinming had already sent people to ambush here. "Asshole, what means did you use to hurt the Emperor like this? You dare to take away the treasures in our forbidden land. Today, you can't escape from here." The angry shouts sounded, and hundreds of monks appeared in an instant, and more people poured into the forbidden land. The piece of exotic treasure shining with colorful light has been taken into Nai Chen's arms. The latter slowly disappeared, and monks surrounded Nai Chen from all directions at the same time, almost surrounding him layer by layer. The emperor whom he believed in and revered was beaten so badly, and they obviously had no intention of letting Nai Chen go. These people arranged by Emperor Jinming in advance were not very strong. But in addition to many Xianyuan realm cultivators, there are also several Bahai realm elders. In addition, there are so many people that Nai Chen is completely surrounded from all sides. Its situation seems not to be underestimated. But at this moment, crack, crack. Above the sky, the metal barrier that was originally transformed by Emperor Jinming and almost completely covered the sky actually made a cracking sound. The cracks spread quickly and spread completely in the blink of an eye. Boom! A golden chariot hit the barrier with its head. The shattered barrier in half of the sky instantly broke a huge hole. And the golden chariot slowly fell into everyone's sight. In the sky, the music floated up, and countless female disciples in bright clothes stood respectfully on both sides. The golden chariot was extremely majestic, and it was carved with dragons, phoenixes, and exotic beasts, which were lifelike. The female disciples of the Holy Land cleared the way for it on both sides. Accompanied by the graceful and reverberating music, the chariot seemed to exude an inviolable majesty. At this time, a slender jade hand finally lifted the golden curtain. There is no beauty in the world, and the beauty is pleasing to the eyes. When the face that could be called the most beautiful in the world slowly came out of the chariot, everyone seemed to hold their breath for a moment. With a slight frown and a faint smile, the graceful figure with golden hair like a waterfall, holy and majestic, but with a bit of charming tenderness that makes people completely attracted. Just floating in the sky, the extraordinary figure seemed to make this world beautiful. However, no matter how beautiful it was, when the graceful sound of the zither symbolizing the Holy Land of Flowers sounded, everyone felt a sense of fear in their hearts, and did not dare to have the slightest thought of offending. As a great emperor, whether in terms of strength or majesty, the degree of awe and admiration of the Saint of Flowers is far better than that of Emperor Jinming. Even the golden chariot is a treasure that has been passed down for a long time in the Holy Land of Flowers and is comparable to a heavenly magic weapon. The female disciples of the Holy Land of Flowers stood solemnly on both sides, holding magic weapons in their hands, respectfully accompanying the saint. Looking at this sacred and majestic scene, many people completely believed it. If the Saint of Flowers really wanted to, she could easily flatten this place completely. Nai Chen, I will take it away from the Holy Land of Flowers. Today, Nai Chen came to take away this treasure because it is related to the imperial tomb and may even be related to the safety of the entire Lanchuan continent. No matter who this forbidden land belongs to, no one is qualified to stop him. Nai Chen will follow my Holy Land of Flowers. Does anyone have any doubts? The Saint of Flowers' beautiful eyes, which were slightly shining with golden light, swept across the earth. In an instant, the sense of sacred majesty made everyone unable to have the slightest thought of resistance. Even though their own emperor was seriously injured and fell to the ground miserably, under the golden light, no one dared to raise any objections. Even the Pahai realm elders under Emperor Jinming dared to only stand beside Emperor Jinming at this moment, looking up at the sky in shock, not daring to make any moves. The entire forbidden area was silent, and there was no longer the determination to kill Nai Chen just now. No one dared to stand up and resist. That's right, Nai Chen, then come with me. The long golden hair of the Saint of Flowers swayed slightly in the wind, and she looked at Nai Chen, with a charming smile on her lips. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 293. Saintess of Flowers, you dare to take him away. The short body of Emperor Jinming shouted angrily. What did you say? The eyes she looked at Nai Chen were charming and tender, but when she looked at Emperor Jinming, Saintess of Flowers exuded a strong sense of oppression. The power of the emperor, with the aura of sacred majesty, actually made Emperor Jinming speechless in an instant. As a powerful emperor, he could feel the clear gap between the two. His Tao heart was already damaged under Nai Chen's attack. If Saintess of Flowers really planned to attack, the short body was so angry that he spit out a mouthful of blood, but Emperor Jinming did not dare to stop him at all. Without his order, the monks who were ambushing in the forbidden area no longer dared to act on their own. After all, the disciples of the Holy Land of Flowers accompanied them, and the sacred and ethereal feeling they exuded made people not have the slightest blasphemous thoughts. If they really took action, they would not only face the Saint of Flowers, but also the huge power of the Holy Land that had been passed down for 10,000 years. It might even alarm the Empress King Yu. Seeing Nai Chen put away the colorful jade that they had planned so hard and finally got, and flew to the middle of the sky. Even though they gritted their teeth, no one dared to stop him. More importantly, They actually saw clearly that Nai Chen not only integrated into the team of the Holy Land of Flowers. He even lifted the curtain of the golden chariot and sat in it with the Saint of Flowers. This scene almost stunned everyone. After all, the golden chariot made of dazzling gold and stone and tempered by countless formations has always been sat by the Saint of Flowers alone. According to common sense, no one is qualified to sit in it unless they are emperors of equal status. How could Nai Chen sit in it? However, in the stunned eyes of everyone, the Saint of Flowers just smiled and turned to get into the carriage. She didn't seem to intend to explain, nor did she want to explain at all. The melodious and sacred Sanskrit sound echoed in the sky again. Surrounded by countless colorfully dressed disciples, the fragrant wind was ethereal, and the carriage carrying the Saint of Flowers and Nai Chen slowly left. Only the people who were stunned were left standing there, completely at a loss. Nai Chen, you dare to destroy this emperor. Emperor Jinming was just about to stand up with his body. But suddenly, the devilish whisper echoed in his mind again. But you are a virgin, you don't have a girlfriend. With a puff, a mouthful of old blood spurted out directly. His body was shaky, and before he could stand up completely, Emperor Jinming almost fell to the ground. His Tao heart suffered an unprecedented impact. After so many years of cultivation, he has even crossed into the realm of the great emperor, but he has never been so devastated. Nai Chen. Looking up at the pierced sky, Emperor Jinming shouted the last two words with all his might. But soon, he fell to the ground with blood spurting out of his mouth. A great emperor was in his own forbidden land, vomiting blood and almost fainting. Emperor, are you okay? For a while, the entire desert forbidden land was in complete chaos. Ding, congratulations to the host for successfully angering Emperor Jinming to the point of damaging his Tao heart and fainting directly. Obtained system reward, Emperor Jinming's inheritance, 10,000 swords domain. Obtained reward, refining a part of the 7-color source stone. The 10,000 swords domain is one of the most powerful inheritances in the ancient times. It can use the 4-sided space as a domain to summon thousands of sword blades. The strength of Emperor Jinming himself is not that strong. It is because he maintained his childlike body that he was able to endure hardships and refine the 10,000 sword domains. While he entered the realm of the emperor with the 10,000 sword domains and became the emperor of a region, he could only remain a child forever. If he knew that Nai Chen not only got his sword domain for free, but also did not experience the pain of being a child at all, the degree of trauma in Emperor Jinming's heart would probably be even more tragic than it is now. Not only that. As the system's voice fell, the jade stone held in Nai Chen's hand actually burst into a strong light. The colorful light almost illuminated the entire chariot, and the aura it exuded was extremely powerful and huge. This thing is actually a source stone. As early as when he was in the demon sect, Nai Chen had seen a source stone. It is rumored that the source stone is related to communicating with the outside world, and even the illusory void. And this source stone is obviously full of vitality, and it carries a powerful aura that is completely incomparable to the one in the nether sect. Refining begins. Accompanied by the sound of the system, the colorful source stone was constantly emitting light and pouring into Nai Chen's body. The light was dazzling and exuded a holy aura. Just a moment after it touched Nai Chen's body, it turned into endless spiritual energy and surged into it. More importantly, it was far different from ordinary spiritual energy. The aura seemed to come from eternity, mysterious and elusive. What happened? Looking at the scene in front of her, even the Saint of Flowers was slightly surprised. She soon noticed that although the aura of the colorful source stone was as vast as the sea, a faint golden light appeared on the surface of Nai Chen's body. These colorful auras were actually blended into it softly, and it seemed that they did not cause any harm. On the contrary, they were integrated into Nai Chen's body. The first vein of the Xiangu saint body is to open up the full potential of the body. The second vein of the Xiangu saint body is the extremely mysterious and extremely yin energy that originated from ancient times. The third vein of the Xiangu saint body is for absorption, which can refine the physique of others into one's own. The fourth vein of the Xiangu saint body is the spiritual pupil, which can see through the essence of all things in the world. And this fifth vein is the domain. The sky and the earth are round. Between the heaven and the earth, the entire world can become a domain, the land of a country can become a domain, and the few meters within a person's body can also be a domain. Unexpectedly, the inheritance of Emperor Jinming that I just got happened to have 1,000 threads of connection with the fifth vein of the Xiangu saint body, accompanied by the light on the colorful source stone entering the body. At this moment, the space in the four directions of the world seemed to be different in Nichien's eyes. What he saw was no longer a whole, but pieces, different spaces and domains. Each space is different, but connected to each other. For a long time, the cultivators on Lanchuan continent have been fighting endlessly, as if there is only Lanchuan continent in this world. But they don't know that Lanchuan continent is just a drop in the ocean. It is just one of the countless domains. In the vast universe, there are countless domains, but these countless worlds are ultimately a whole domain. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the seven-colored source stone disappeared by nearly 1/10 of its size in Nichien's hands. At this moment, Nichien slowly opened his eyes. The fifth vein of the Xiangu saint body, which has been sealed for a long time, has finally opened. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 294. I didn't expect that the fifth vein of the Xiangu saint body's comprehension of domain was very similar to the ancient inheritance that Emperor Jinming had comprehended throughout his life. Ding, congratulations to the host, the mastery of the 10,000 sword domain has reached the perfect state. The system voice fell. Looking at the space around him, Nichien actually felt that the space seemed to no longer be a whole. Instead, it seemed to be divided into domains. You actually comprehended and absorbed part of the source stone. Looking at the changes in Nichien's body and the seven-color source stone that seemed to have shrunk a little, the Saint of Flowers also showed a trace of astonishment. In Lanchuan continent, source stones are extremely precious and mysterious. Even on the entire continent, it is almost extremely difficult to find a few source stones. And most of them are source stones with attributes such as wind and fire. The mystery of this seven-color source stone is still difficult to find even in the records. I didn't expect that Nichien could not only comprehend a little mystery in the seven-color source stone, but also absorbed a small part of it. If it wasn't Nichien, she would never believe it if it was anyone else. Well, this source stone is really a good thing. Nichien couldn't help but sigh. Domain, space, these things were originally untouchable by anyone below the emperor. But with the help of the source stone, he actually understood a lot in an instant. However, the empress told me that this treasure in the desert forbidden land may be related to the imperial mausoleum. Can you see anything? Nichien handed the seven-color source stone to the hands of the flower saint. The flower saint gently held the source stone and integrated her thoughts into it. Soon, she nodded. King Yu was right. This source stone might really be related to the imperial mausoleum. The jade hand gently waved in the air, and the scene she saw actually appeared in the chariot. Surrounding the source stone, a series of colorful lights spread from it like silk threads. These countless colorful silk threads extended to the distance, as if communicating countless spaces and domains. One of the paths led to the emperor's mausoleum. I didn't expect that this source stone was indeed related to the emperor's mausoleum. Not only that. The Saint of Flowers looked at the ray of light that spread to the direction of the emperor's mausoleum, and murmured with a hint of solemnity. It seems that the situation in the emperor's mausoleum is indeed not optimistic. Sitting in the carriage, Nai Chen also returned to the Holy Land of Flowers. The carriage fell to the ground, and soon, a disciple brought a wooden box with a bamboo flute and presented it to the Saint of Flowers with both hands, and told her about Yao Menjiun's situation. This girl. The Saint of Flowers couldn't help but sigh. Except for being a little bit competitive, Yao Menjiun has a righteous outlook, excellent character, and works very hard in cultivation. There is nothing to criticize. But the only problem is that her state of mind seems to be a little fragile. Even the Saint of Flowers couldn't help but feel a little curious. After all, before Yao Menjiun left, she had already lent her the heavenly grade bamboo flute temporarily, and even taught her a spell that could clearly sense the aura of an object and avoid danger. Logically speaking, with these two things, there shouldn't be any accidents. She couldn't help but open the wooden box and took out the bamboo flute. There was no crack on the bamboo flute, and it was obviously fine. Since it's not about the magic weapon, then what is it? She put the bamboo flute to her lips with some doubts, and gently pressed her cherry lips on it, but the Saint of Flowers paused for a moment. For some reason, she actually felt a strange aura on the bamboo flute. Noticing that Nai Chen was looking at her, Saint of Flowers temporarily dispelled her doubts and smiled coquettishly. "Why are you looking at me like this? Are you interested in my flute playing?" But she looked back and smiled, charmingly. The voice of the flower saint was soft and intoxicating. "But if you want to listen, I can do it." The golden hair was gently lifted to the temples, and the brocade dress with a bit of holiness outlined the graceful and extraordinary curves. Silent and charming, the flower saint smiled and blew the first note. But after just blowing it, she suddenly felt something strange. I was not wrong, there seemed to be some strange breath on the bamboo flute. And, the feel seemed strange. What is it? The flower saint was slightly stunned, and she was also a little curious. It happened that she had just taught Yao Menjiun a secret method to detect breath. She integrated a wisp of spiritual energy into the bamboo flute and felt the breath coming back. This is. However, the flower saint's cheeks suddenly turned red. Even the hand holding the bamboo flute was shaking slightly. Her cultivation was far superior to Yao Menjiun, and her control over magic was much stronger. Therefore, the breath she felt on the bamboo flute was also clearer. Even the Saint of Flowers began to evade her gaze, and her cheeks felt red. With the help of the breath restoration technique, she felt the breath of Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu on the bamboo flute at the same time. Because of her extremely powerful strength, she could barely see the fragrant and lingering scene that flashed by. Don't use the bamboo flute in strange places, it's a heavenly magic weapon. The Saint of Flowers was so ashamed that she couldn't even look at the bamboo flute in her hand. "Saint, what's wrong?" At this moment, Nai Chen noticed her strange change and asked. "No, nothing." She quickly put away the bamboo flute and tried her best to pretend that she knew nothing. But her heart was beating hard to calm down. Until she quietly hid the bamboo flute, the feeling of shame finally eased a little. Holding the source stone in her hand, the voice of the Saint of Flowers was a little heavy. "The appearance of this source stone means that the situation in the imperial mausoleum may be urgent." "Well, it seems so." Nai Chen nodded. When he merged some of the 7-color source stones just now, he seemed to sense some of the scenes in the imperial mausoleum for a moment. The mountains of corpses and the sea of blood, the sky full of blood. The horrifying scene did not look like a sacred place where the supreme powers of the entire continent were buried. "Saint is going to leave for the imperial mausoleum soon?" Nai Chen asked. "Maybe, but it's not time yet." The Saint of Flowers smiled and came to Nai Chen with a wisp of fragrance. "It's so hard to come to the Holy Land of Flowers, why don't I invite you to participate in an event?" "Event?" "Yes, it's an event prepared for entering the imperial mausoleum." However, you need to participate in a group of 2. You can't bear to see me alone and watching. The Saint of Flowers stared at Nai Chen pitifully. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 295. Many female disciples gathered in front of the 7 source flowers of the Flower Holy Land. At this moment, only the love flower among the 7 source flowers was bathed in holy light. In the Flower Holy Land, the 7 source flowers that have been passed down for tens of millions of years are all mysterious and have great effects. Especially the love flower. The ancestors of the Holy Land once planted immortal magic in the love flower. Whenever the Flower Holy Land faces a war, it can come to the love flower. Friendship, family affection, love. No matter what kind of emotion it is, as long as you can move the love flower, you can get the gift from the love flower. But there are no male disciples in the Flower Holy Land. In most cases, even if someone can be infected with the love flower, it is difficult to get a particularly powerful gift. Therefore, compared to getting the blessing of the ancestors, for most disciples, the love flower is more like an activity with psychological comfort. And this activity is quite popular. Because even if you can't get any precious magic weapon from the love flower, you can occasionally get some small toys. Toys like bronze mirrors, wooden combs, and dolls are as popular as claw machines. As they may go to the imperial mausoleum at any time, many disciples naturally seized this opportunity and came to the love flower. The atmosphere on the hillside was quite lively. Many female disciples were laughing and playing around the love flower, quite happy. Sister Chiu, I love you. Sister Ya, I do too. The 2 female disciples looked at each other, their eyes were full of affection, and their hands were held together, as if they were deeply in love. With the emotional words, their cheeks slowly approached each other. As they watched, the soft lips seemed to overlap. Pa. At this moment, a light flashed on the love flower. A slightly transparent pebble fell to the ground. Ha ha ha, it's actually a pebble. You 2 acted very well, but it's too fake. The female disciples around laughed instantly. The laughter echoed on the hillside, and many female disciples laughed so hard that their branches shook. Some even fell on the lawn, holding their stomachs and rolling around with laughter. Their gauze skirts were stained with a layer of flowers and grass. After all, pebbles are the worst reward for love flowers. There are so many of these stones that can be found everywhere. Love flowers give rewards according to the true emotions that are revealed. Family, friendship, love. No matter which one, as long as the emotions are sincere, you can get extraordinary rewards. But if it is not sincere, no matter how realistic the performance is, it will be useless. Recalling the affectionate acting between the 2 just now, it can be said that there is no flaw in the acting. Looking at the pebbles that fell on the ground without any characteristics, the silver bell-like laughter continued. Sister Chiu, you say you love me all the time, but it doesn't work. Hey, you are the same. If I had known, I would have come with the little yellow dog on the mountain. Even if we are of different races, we won't be so miserable as you. You are only rewarded with a pebble. The 2 female disciples chuckled and slid down in shame under the eyes of everyone. They were almost embarrassed. Is this the activity you mentioned? Looking at the laughter in front of him, Nai Chen couldn't help but be interested. How is it? Isn't it good? Do you want to try it with me? Maybe, you can get the blessing of the ancestors of the Holy Land. The Saint of Flowers covered her mouth and chuckled, with a hint of tenderness in her eyes. Nai Chen, it's okay to try, but the problem is that we are not pebbles. How is that possible? The Saint of Flowers stared at Nai Chen with resentment. As if she thought of something, she suddenly smiled again. Maybe if we go together, we can get extremely precious treasures. You are dreaming. Nai Chen smiled. After all, the two female disciples' realistic acting skills were easily seen. It is obvious that the love flower can directly see through people's true emotions. Unless it is true, no matter how realistic it is, it will never deceive it. As for the three emotions: family, friendship. It is obvious that although she and the Saint of Flowers have a very good relationship, it is difficult to talk about these 2 points. At this moment, there are more female disciples going to the love flower. One of the two people this time is a familiar face. The one on the left in white clothes, who is quite eye-catching even among many beautiful female disciples, is the chief disciple of the Holy Land, Mu Chuning. When the love flower lost control, it was Mu Chuning who ran into the house first to give her a love letter. Of course, she was also the first to die in society. At this moment, the female disciple holding hands with Mu Chuning was named Yin Xia. Yin Xia lowered her head, her long eyelashes flickering, and her voice was a little small. "Sister Mu, this is just acting, I definitely don't have any extra emotions, you must not take it seriously." "Don't worry, of course I can't take it seriously, it's just acting anyway. Besides, the love flower can identify people's true emotions and can't be deceived at all. We just need to act more realistically. We should try to get something slightly stronger than pebbles. If it doesn't work, pebbles are not impossible." Mu Chuning responded with a smile, not caring at all. After all, there are only female disciples in the Holy Land of Flowers, how can there be any true feelings that can move the love flower? Although Yin Xia, who was standing by, had a very good relationship with him, they were not close friends. On the contrary, Yin Xia seemed to be avoiding him on purpose. I don't know if she was actually afraid of him, or even a little disgusted with him. However, as their senior sister, I still need to be tolerant. I don't ask for anything from the love flower, as long as it is a pebble, it is enough. The two walked hand in hand to the love flower. "Yin Xia, just act casually, it is also a respect for the love flower." Mu Chuning said softly. "Yes, senior sister." Yin Xia responded and slowly raised her head. Mu Chuning was a little taller than her. Because of the hillside, the two of them happened to look at each other. Senior sister." Yin Xia's voice trembled slightly, and she had completely forgotten her lines. But at this moment, the eyes from all directions were staring at her, making her even more nervous. Even her hands were a little cold and trembling slightly. Finally, Yin Xia could no longer bear such pressure and completely gave up saying those cold lines. Instead, standing on tiptoe, she gently kissed Mu Chuning on the cheek. Then, she hurriedly left, lowered her head nervously, and dodged her eyes. Huh! Mu Chuning was obviously stunned when she was suddenly kissed. She doesn't even want to say the lines. Does she hate me? As the eldest sister, she couldn't satisfy everyone. Mu Chuning sighed a little disappointed. But she noticed strangely that Yin Xia's cheek seemed a little red. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 296. Hey, am I hated? Mu Chuning was a little disappointed. But she always felt that Yin Xia, whose cheeks were slightly red, looked at her, and there seemed to be a completely different light in her eyes. Senior sister. These two words seemed to be full of countless tenderness. Strange, did I understand it wrong? Mu Chuning couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. After all, this was the first time she had seen such a strange scene. At this moment, the love flower finally flashed with light. More importantly, it was completely different from before, and this light was obviously much brighter. Jade Heart Dual Cultivation Method. The grade of this method that fell before the love flower was actually the lower grade of the earth grade. How rare is the lower grade of the earth grade? In addition to sighing at the wonderful method passed down by the ancestors, cheers rang out instantly. Senior sister Kai Yuning is so powerful. Junior sister Yin Xia is so bold. Together. Together. Mu Kai Yuning was completely stunned. The situation in front of her was completely beyond her cognition. Didn't junior sister Yin Xia hate me? Why did the love flower appear not as the most ordinary pebble, but as a local level technique? And, it was a dual cultivation technique. Could it be that there was something wrong with the love flower? Just as Mu Qiuning looked at Yin Xia curiously, she finally discovered the shyness and unspeakable feelings in Yin Xia's flowing eyes. Junior sister. Instantly, Mu Qiuning's cheeks also flushed slightly. The cheers of the surrounding female disciples became more and more enthusiastic and excited. The situation of the orange seems to be very good. This accident, it's just an accident. The disciples of our Holy Land are definitely not all like this. Nai Chen witnessed everything right next to him, and the Saint of Flowers suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Although there is an old saying, the opposite sex is for reproduction, and the same sex is true love. But the feelings that have sprouted between these female disciples are obviously inseparable from themselves. First of all, the Holy Land never recruits male disciples, which makes these female disciples really feel suffocated. More importantly, she had been single for more than 800 years, and she had a good relationship with Chu Qingyu and other beautiful female monks, and they had made many intimate moves. Therefore, there were rumors in the martial arts world that the sexual orientation of the Saint of Flowers was slightly different. And those female disciples who worshipped her like a god actually believed it and even began to imitate her. Because of this, the atmosphere in the Holy Land of Flowers always made people feel a little bit wrong. Those female disciples who were more beautiful than each other actually looked at each other from time to time and fell in love with each other. When she thought of this, the Saint of Flowers suddenly felt that her tears were about to flow out. Entering the realm of the great emperor and being worshipped as a saint, when had she ever felt so wronged? The key was that she had no way to explain this absurd rumor. Because the fact that she had been single for more than 800 years without a Taoist partner was not convincing at all. Woo woo woo. As she spoke, the Saint of Flowers suddenly felt aggrieved and her eyes were slightly moistened. What's wrong? Nai Chen was slightly curious when he noticed her sudden strange change. Nothing, nothing. The Saint of Flowers shook her head repeatedly, but still couldn't help but say pitifully. Remember to show less dog food and abuse dogs in the future, otherwise, this life will really be unbearable. Nai Chen. It seems that not only the female disciples of the saint, but also the Saint of Flowers are frustrated. After calming down for a long time, the Saint of Flowers finally recovered her mood. At this moment, Mu Qiuning had already left with another female disciple who was lingering with her and took the dual cultivation technique. As for what she left for, no one knew. The Saint of Flowers, who seemed to have been hit by 10,000 points, patted her full chest and barely forgot about it. Let's go. She and Nai Chen also came to the love flower. The saint is here too. Wait, why is the saint with Nai Chen? Although Nai Chen is an old acquaintance of the Holy Land, these female disciples never thought that he would come to the love flower with the saint. 3 kinds of feelings. For the saint, love with a man is absolutely impossible. Could it be that, the saint and Nai Chen are actually half-siblings, and they are family members? Maybe. Otherwise, the other 2 are unlikely. Your brain circuits. Forget it, no matter what, this is simply a huge gossip. The atmosphere was boiling, and it was obviously more excited than before. All the female disciples gathered in front of the hillside, looking at the scene in front of them with great interest. Too excited and curious, they didn't dare to move their eyes for a moment. They just needed to move a bench, hold a watermelon, eat melon seeds, and become qualified spectators. Humph, this time the saint must prove herself in front of these disciples. The flower saint made up her mind and smiled softly at Nai Chen. Let's start too. How do we start? The other disciples said some shameful love words. But those awkward middle school conversations were really hard for Nai Chen to say. More importantly, even if it was just acting, if I said some cheesy love words to Saint Flower and the Empress heard them by accident. If I go back, I might not be able to get out of bed for 3 days. Saint Flower seemed to have expected it. It doesn't matter, don't say those embarrassing love words, I have a better way. As she said that, she suddenly stopped. She took a step forward with lotus steps, sweeping the fragrant breeze. Her cherry lips were placed beside her ear, and her voice was very light, but with a hint of intoxicating tenderness. This saint can let you touch any 2 parts. You can touch anywhere, as you wish. When she finished speaking, Saint Flower took a step back instantly. But she smiled at Nai Chen, and her graceful figure made her look even more charming. Are you sure it's 2 parts? Nai Chen smiled slightly. That's right, but I didn't expect you to actually agree. Like a newly opened flower, the Saint of Flowers closed her eyes slowly with a smile. She felt as if she was being picked by you. Then it's better to obey than to be respectful. This time, Nai Chen didn't refuse at all. And he stretched out his hand and slowly reached out to the enchanting and slender body. 7 inches, 5 inches, 3 inches. Even with her eyes closed, the Saint of Flowers could feel Nai Chen's hand getting closer and closer. Finally, she closed her eyes, her curled eyelashes trembled slightly, and she was obviously a little flustered. Although she said it seemed to be completely indifferent. But she didn't expect that Nai Chen would actually agree. Based on her understanding of Nai Chen, he should have refused. This time, the Saint of Flowers was completely out of her usual calmness. She even felt her heart beating like a deer. Could it be, could it be? He really intends to do it for real. However, Nai Chen's hand has already arrived. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 297. Although she had teased Nai Chen more than once, Saint Fanhua never thought that he would actually do it. More importantly, this was before the 7 source flowers, and there were countless disciples watching. If Nai Chen really did it? Saint Fanhua's heart beat faster and faster. On one hand, she could not hide her shame, and on the other hand, she did not want to admit defeat. However, Nai Chen's hand was gradually approaching. And it was about to reach her. This time, Saint Fanhua was completely panicked. Don't. She whispered hurriedly, trying to stop Nai Chen. But she found that Nai Chen had no intention of stopping at all. It's over, it's all over. Feeling the approaching palm, Saint Fanhua suddenly lost all hope. She never thought that she would get herself involved in just a joke. Her heartbeat became more and more difficult to control, and the sinful palm was about to reach her body. Pa, pa. But just when Saint Fanhua was feeling ashamed and angry, she felt Nai Chen's 2 fingers pressing on 2 acupuncture points on her body. Huh. After coming to her senses, Saint Fanhua hurriedly opened her eyes and covered her chest with shame and anger. But she realized that the 2 acupuncture points Nai Chen had just pressed were not the parts she imagined. So, he pressed. Wait, 3 inches below the navel and the acupuncture points in the center of the chest. That's the laugh point and the cry point. Just when she reacted, it was too late. A stream of spiritual energy broke through the defense of the 2 acupuncture points, making her completely unable to control her emotions. Ha ha ha, no, woo woo woo. Both joy and sadness. The 2 emotions hit Saint Fanhua's heart at the same time. She cried with laughter and laughed with tears. It was as if someone had been tickling her armpits. and the technique of acupuncture was excellent, and it might have reached the pinnacle. Even though she was a powerful emperor, she was completely unable to resist the invasion of the two emotions. Her feet softened, and the Saint of Flowers fell directly on the lawn. And she could no longer suppress her laughter. Nai Chen, hurry up, give me some back, it's too much. Ha 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 ha, no, woo woo woo. The Saint of Flowers cried and laughed on the lawn, and her slender legs like lotus roots rolled around. Her golden hair was also stained with flowers and grass, and was completely messy. Nai Chen, save me quickly, I can't stand it, ha ha ha. She laughed so hard that she couldn't stop crying and laughing, and suddenly felt her nose sore. Ding, congratulations to the host for successfully pulling the wool of the Saint of Flowers, reward skill points *30. The spiritual eye can see the weakest flaws of the Saint of Flowers. Unexpectedly, as expected, it was actually pulled her wool. Forget it, I'll let you go. Looking at the eyes of the female disciples around him, Nai Chen smiled helplessly. After all, in their hearts, the Saint of Flowers will always be the sacred and inviolable holy image. Where have they seen such a scene? Some disciples with weaker mental states even turned pale, and their eyes were pale. The things they have always believed in suddenly changed, and their mental state seemed to be greatly devastated. No, this is a little different from the saint in my heart. Even in the hundreds of years that the Saint of Flowers has ruled the Holy Land, no one has ever seen such a scene. What happened today? Pa, pa. Just as the Saint of Flowers was crying and laughing, rolling around on the lawn pitifully, Nai Chen finally leaned over and pressed on her 2 acupuncture points. Instantly, the laughter and crying that were surging like the tide stopped. The 2 feelings of torture of the Saint of Flowers dissipated, and she finally felt a little comfortable. But she felt as tired as if after a big battle, and her whole body was soft. Nai Chen. She forced herself to sit up, her golden semi-transparent dress draped over her slender jade legs. She supported herself on the ground with her palms, and looked up at Nai Chen. Her nose was sour, and she was full of resentment. I didn't see anything, I didn't see anything. In my heart, the saint has always been a sacred existence high above. Me too. The female disciples on the side covered their eyes at the same time and turned around in panic. Try to forget the scene that no one dared to accept. Damn it! The Saint of Flowers had tears in her eyes. She didn't expect that not only Qingyu bullied her, but she would even be bullied by Nai Chen. After all, she never thought that Nai Chen would actually press those 2 acupoints. The admiration and respect she received from the disciples of the Holy Land as a saint was about to be lost in this day. Damn it, sooner or later the saint. With tears in her eyes, the Saint of Flowers looked at the love flower. But to her complete surprise, the love flower actually reacted. A faint light shone. Although it was not very dazzling, it seemed to contain a completely different aura. Pa! A small round ball rolled into her palm. The colorful sugar coating exuded a faint sweetness. Although it was small, it was extremely beautiful. This is candy. The Saint of Flowers never thought that the love flower would transform into such a reward. After all, this was the first time she had seen such candy. Perhaps, it might be a reward lower than a pebble. Looking at the colorful candy in her hand, the eyes of the Saint of Flowers were slightly absent-minded. Just as she was about to taste it, a figure came from the horizon. Empress Qingyu is here. Another female disciple exclaimed in an instant, with a bit of excitement. The relationship between the saint and Chu Qingyu is very good on weekdays, and the disciples of Tianyunhal and the Holy Land of Flowers have always been in contact. In the eyes of many disciples of the Holy Land, in addition to the saint, Chu Qingyu is the most respected person in their hearts. Aloof, cold, and powerful. Qingyu. The Saint of Flowers was startled and stood up quickly, trying to explain. Ahem, I just took the disciples to make some preparations before entering the imperial mausoleum. It just happened that Nai Chen was here. Don't misunderstand. Halfway through, she noticed that Chu Qingyu didn't seem angry this time. Forget it, I'm not a jealous person who gets angry easily. This emperor already knows what happened in the desert Forbidden Land. Yu Yu glanced at the Saint of Flowers, but Chu Qingyu didn't blame her too much. But she cast her eyes on the love flower. I heard that the love flower in the Holy Land of Flowers can sense 3 kinds of human emotions and bring down the inheritance of the ancestors of the Holy Land. So this is what you are talking about. She glanced at Nai Chen, and then at the love flower. Chu Qingyu pretended to be indifferent, but she clearly revealed a hint of interest. Why don't we try it too? Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 298. Wife, do you want to try? Sure. Nai Chen agreed without any hesitation. The love flower can feel the sincere feelings between the two. So facing the love flower is like a test. But this test is nothing to fear for Nai Chen, who is open-minded. Humph, it seems that you are not guilty. But don't let a pebble come out at that time. Chu Qingyu snorted proudly. Don't worry, if it's a pebble, I will eat it directly. Nai Chen is very confident about this. The two came to the love flower together. The Holy Land of Flowers is worthy of being the Holy Land of Flowers. The flowers all over the mountains are colorful, and the breeze sweeps over, and the flowers and plants sway with the wind. It rises and falls like waves, like a beautiful painting. And in front of the love flower, Chu Qingyu's long hair like a waterfall flutters slightly in the wind. Although the flawless face has a hint of coldness, it can't hide a little expectation. It seems that she has already had a lot of interest in the love flower. But wife, what should we do? Nai Chen asked. Although the love flower does not look at the appearance, it can directly feel the true emotions of the two people who came. But if you want to show your emotions, you still have to do something symbolically. Why don't I ask you some questions as a test? Chu Qingyu seemed to have had an idea in her mind and whispered. Questions? It doesn't matter, just ask whatever you want. Nai Chen patted his chest and acted indifferent. After all, in this world, if I rank second in terms of understanding the Empress, I'm afraid no one dares to rank first. Then I'll ask. The breeze blew, and Chu Qingyu coughed lightly, as if she was preparing. After all, although it didn't feel like anything just now, it was still a bit embarrassing to take the initiative to ask questions about herself. After hesitating for a moment, she finally endured the shame and lowered her voice. Do you know what kind of animals I am more interested in? Cats, of course. Nai Chen answered without hesitation. Although you don't keep cats in your bedroom on weekdays, your eyes seem to shine whenever you see cats kept by other disciples. If it weren't for your status, you would have gone up to pet the cats with the disciples. You're right. Chu Qingyu nodded calmly on the surface, but she felt that her heart was beating faster. After all, even she didn't expect Nai Chen to actually notice such a trivial thing as secretly watching cats. She was still a little unwilling. What about the clothes that this emperor usually wears? Don't you men always? Blue. Nai Chen answered very quickly. Mostly light blue Liuxian skirts, but occasionally white ones. My wife, you seem to prefer blue, and you never need any rouge and powder makeup. But the only time was when you secretly put on a little blush on your second date with me. At this moment, Chu Qingyu's eyes paused for a moment. Then, she felt that her heart was beating so fast that she couldn't control it at all. How could this be? She had clearly heard before that men's mouths are lies. Men say they love everything about you, but they don't care at all. They don't care about what women like, nor do they care about women's clothes and makeup. They just act as if they care. But Nai Chen seemed to remember everything clearly. Chu Qingyu pursed her lips and tried to break through. What's the flower that this emperor likes the most? The colorful nirvana flower that I gave you on our first date. What's your favorite musical instrument? Flute. When is my date? Around the 8th of every month, my wife. Remember to drink more brown sugar water, don't catch a cold then. Chu Qingyu, damn it. I don't believe it, then, you must not know the color of my pajamas. Nai Chen. My wife doesn't wear clothes when she sleeps. Chu Qingyu. The atmosphere was a little awkward for a while, and she couldn't help but blushing. All of Nai Chen's answers were indeed far beyond her expectations. Chu Qingyu turned her head and was silent for a while. But suddenly, she leaned close to Nai Chen's ear, and her voice dropped to a very low level, almost undetectable. What is this emperor's favorite food? Food. Nai Chen answered all the previous questions without any pressure. But he fell into thinking about this question. After all, there are countless delicacies from mountains and seas, and no one has the concept of favorite food. Moreover, the empress never seems to have shown a very different hobby for a particular thing. You finally don't know this. Chu Qingyu raised the corner of her mouth a little proudly. Well, so what is it? Nai Chen was a little confused and really couldn't think of how to answer. But he suddenly noticed that Chu Qingyu's eyes were evasive, and there seemed to be a hidden wave of autumn in her eyes. It turned out to be, obviously with a hint of shyness. Okay, I'll tell you. This time, Chu Qingyu completely lost the coldness that she could maintain before. Not knowing what the answer was, her voice was actually trembling slightly. Strange, what is it? Just as Nai Chen was wondering, Chu Qingyu finally leaned close to his ear. Her breath was as sweet as orchid, and a little hot. This emperor, my favorite thing to eat is, you. After saying this, shame completely climbed into her heart. She quickly turned her head away, a little at a loss. This is. Nai Chen was stunned for a moment before reacting. He was a little amused. He never thought that the only thing he didn't guess was actually from Chu Qingyu's sultry love words. However, although the words just now sounded sultry, they were particularly sultry when spoken by the flawless and beautiful empress. Wife, do you know what I like to eat the most? At this moment, Nai Chen suddenly asked back. What? Chu Qingyu responded subconsciously. It's you too. But soon, Nai Chen's voice sounded beside her delicate and slightly red ears. This sentence actually made her burst out laughing instantly. Hey, this sentence is so cheesy. Isn't it the same for you, Empress? How is that possible? How could I? Really? Of course. Then why is your face slightly red, Empress? Red, impossible. Touching her slightly hot cheeks, Chu Qingyu hurriedly tried to explain. This is natural. Nai Chen, I don't believe you. Chu Qingyu was ashamed and angry. Damn it, do you believe that I really ate you? Nai Chen smiled. Is it serious for you to eat like this? The two people who were originally planning to impress the love flower seemed to be arguing, and the disciples next to them were stunned. But at this moment, a dazzling light suddenly flashed on the love flower. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 299. The light transformed by the Daeking flower is extremely dazzling. So far, no one has ever seen a love flower emit such a bright light. What exactly is the reward for this, love flower? Almost all the disciples couldn't help but froze on the spot. For such a long time, they have been in front of King Hua. But until now, apart from the most ordinary pebbles, they had seen the highest level of rewards. It's just a low-grade local skill obtained by two senior sisters. Because of this, most female disciples regard making a wish before a lover as an entertainment activity. I never thought I could get any real treasure from King Hua. But now, the situation is completely different. The colorful light bloomed by the love flower is dazzling, and the flowing colors are actually filled with rich aura. Even if you can't see clearly what it is, you can clearly feel it. The love flower reward this time will far exceed any previous one. Boom! A wave of air floated around, causing many flowers and plants to tremble. And in the light, something slowly floated into the air. They are two locks connected by a chain. One of the two ends of the lock is blue and the other is pink, which seems to symbolize the couple. What connects the two locks is a chain that is not fully realized, but there seems to be a thread that connects the two. The two locks are tightly connected to each other, as if they can never be separated. This is a love lock. When two locks filled with spiritual energy fell into the hands of Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu respectively, the eyes of the Blossom Saint were stunned. The love lock is divided into two and connected to each other. Even if the two locks are separated, a spiritual energy that seems to be stored between heaven and earth forever can communicate with each other forever. More importantly, the value of this love lock is much higher than its exquisite appearance. Because these two love locks are heaven-level magic weapons. Heaven-level magic weapons are extremely precious, and each heaven-level magic weapon has its own unique characteristics. If it were anyone else, they might not believe that just two locks could be heaven-level magic weapons. But the Flower Saint, who has memorized the records of the Holy Land, knows it very well. In addition to being able to communicate and perceive each other who is holding the lock, love locks are also able to communicate with each other. As long as you carry it with you, a person can cross space and appear in front of another person in an instant. Twisting space and mastering the power of space is something that only the powerful emperor can do. And the love lock that can accomplish this impossible thing is the heaven-level magic weapon once created by the powerful emperor. This is a heaven-level magic weapon that can even affect the distortion of space. Even when facing the disciples of the Blossom Holy Land, when has King Hua ever received such a reward? Even among thousands of years of records, this is unheard of. The love between these two people has completely touched King Hua. No, is that really just love? The Flower Saint looked at the two of them. Now. Love lock. This thing looks good. Nai Chen looked at the system analysis and didn't expect that this was actually a heaven-level magic weapon. However, it can directly affect the space, and the love lock is indeed in the right position for the heaven-level magic weapon. But as he said that, Nai Chen quickly noticed that Chu Qingyu was looking at the love lock in her hand in a daze, and her clear eyes were extremely beautiful, as if there was an undercurrent of autumn waves. Obviously, even she did not expect that King Hua would be so infected and even rewarded with a heaven-level magic weapon. Love flowers are the oldest inheritance from the prosperous Holy Land and can penetrate people's true hearts. In other words, Nai Chen is even more in love than he seems. When she thought of this, Chu Qingyu suddenly felt her cheeks getting slightly hot. The recognition from a love flower is infinitely more sincere than an affectionate confession. Although it can't be used in fighting, the function of this love lock seems to be very practical. Playing with the love lock in his hand, Nai Chen suddenly smiled. In this way, I can appear in your bedroom at any time, wife, or even directly in bed. Quilt, why are you showing up in bed? Don't use heaven-level magic weapons in strange places. Chu Qingyu shrank slightly in an instant and put her arms in front of her chest. Nai Chen immediately figured out the reason. When it's cold in winter, wouldn't it be okay for my wife to warm you up in bed? What about summer? Xia Tian? My wife, you are always cool and refreshing. In Xia Tian, of course, let me hold you to relieve the heat. How can there be such a relief from the heat? Chu Qing said that the moon was like peach blossoms, and he never thought that Nai Chen's words were more and more outrageous. However, the space was distorted, and Nai Chen appeared beside her due to the involvement of the love lock. Chu Qingyu completely understood. This heavenly magic weapon has been completely destroyed by Nai Chen. She pursed her lips lightly, but she didn't know how to stop Nai Chen, so she could only stare at him with faint shame and anger. Looking at each other, the atmosphere seemed to become more ambiguous. The disciples around him who didn't know what love was and looked at the scene in front of them with some confusion were fine. However, the Blossom Saint girl felt her nose sore and she almost shed tears from being tortured. In addition to the true love between the two that moved King Hua, it was obvious that dog food alone also fed King Hua to her full capacity. The heaven-level magic weapon obtained by love is indeed worthy of its name. The problem is, these two people were handing out dog food in the prosperous Holy Land, and obtained the inheritance that so many Holy Land disciples could never obtain. They even abused dogs here without restraint. Especially when he was cruelly torturing himself as if in a targeted manner, it was simply too much. The Blossom Saint maiden felt like she was about to cry. "Saint, where are you going?" The female disciple on the side turned around and asked quickly. "I want to be quiet." The Flower Saint's nose twitched, her eyes filled with tears, and she hid autistically in the shade of a tree. He hugged his knees with his hands, and his golden hair slightly hung down on his slender legs. She was tortured until her body was completely bruised, and it seemed that she no longer wanted to be contaminated by any worldly causes and effects. Wow, these two people are so hateful. The Flower Saint was leaning on her knees, her soft face was gently squeezed, with a sense of resentment. Inadvertently, she recalled the candy she had just received with Nai Chen. Snort. The Flower Holy Maiden hummed softly and stuffed the colorful candies into her mouth. The candy tastes sweet and melts in your mouth. But suddenly, her beautiful eyes widened slightly. The Blossom Saint was somewhat disbelieving to discover that this one was not just a simple candy. The abundant spiritual energy reverberated in his mouth, which actually made him, the Emperor, feel a little refreshed. The quality of this candy is actually much higher than imagined, much higher. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 300. The grade of this candy is actually so high. In other words, the reward just given by King Hua is far better than I imagined. At this moment, the Flower Saint Maiden's eyes froze slightly. She never thought that a seemingly ordinary candy could have such precious value. That is to say, at this moment, the Blossom Saint didn't want to think too much about anything anymore. The sun shone down, reflecting on her alluring and charming face. She didn't know whether it was the sun being too hot or some other reason, but she felt her cheeks were slightly red. Pursing her lips lightly, at this moment, the Blossom Saint just tasted the taste of the candy over and over again. Sweet and refreshing. At this moment, as the love lock was taken away, other disciples began to appear in front of King Hua one after another. Fortunately, they didn't know that the love lock was actually a heaven-level magic weapon. They were so ignorant that they had no idea what the two locks the Empress had obtained were. Otherwise, the Holy Land of Flowers must have been in a state of boiling at this moment. Sitting under a big tree on the hillside, Nai Chen smiled slightly. "How about my wife, are you quite satisfied with the reward from Love Flower?" "Humph, it's not bad. It was different from before." Chu Qingyu's voice was obviously a little soft. "Even if you want to pretend, it is difficult to continue to pretend to be the power of the Emperor that seems to be able to repel people thousands of miles away." Because at this moment, she could clearly feel the unconcealed joy in her heart. Heaven-level magic weapon. On the Lanchuan continent, heaven-level magic weapons are already the most top-notch existences. In other words, the love between himself and Nai Chen is like this heavenly magic weapon. It has been recognized by King Hua and regarded as the most top-notch love. "Humph, I will not sink so easily. Maybe this heaven-level magic weapon is just a malfunction of the love flower." Chu Qingyu tried to convince herself. It's a pity that this far-fetched explanation is so feeble. Inadvertently, she happened to look into Nai Chen's eyes. Suddenly, Chu Qingyu, who had been unable to control herself just now, had a peach blossom look on her face. She finally avoided her eyes and whispered. "You're pretty good this time, the Emperor, can do it." The birds chirped in the trees, melodiously and gracefully. A gust of breeze swept by, and the waterfall-like hair was gently raised. Chu Qingyu slowly moved forward, her lips gradually getting closer. This kiss seemed to be intended as a reward. "Wait a mini-nude." But Nai Chen smiled slightly, but unexpectedly refused. Chu Qingyu obviously paused for a moment, a little confused. "Ahem, this is at least a small reward, so I thought it could be sweeter." Nai Chen coughed twice and explained. "Sweet." Chu Qingyu tilted her head, with a trace of confusion in her clear eyes. "That's right, although my wife, your lips are already very sweet, but there is a way to make them sweeter." As he said this, a candy actually appeared in Nai Chen's hand. "You mean?" Chu Qingyu understood it instantly, but immediately after, she felt unconcealable shame. How could anyone do such a thing? How could Nai Chen always have such weird ideas? But despite resisting with his mouth, when Nai Chen stuffed the candy over, her lips opened slightly, but she didn't resist at all. What enters the mouth is the sweetness of candy. But then, Nai Chen kissed her. He fell on the lawn, and his long silky hair spread all over the grass. As Nai Chen attacked a little more fiercely than usual, the candy melted very quickly. Touch, sweetness. Several feelings were mixed together. Chu Qingyu's head was dizzy, but she could only feel that the sweetness of the candy seemed to be much sweeter than before. In fact, one can't help but be immersed in it. The chirping of birds became more and more melodious, as if they were accompanying the two sounds under the shade of the trees. The breeze blew by, carrying the clear and lovely whisper into the distance. I don't know how long it took before the stubborn candy finally melted away. As they slowly separated, Chu Qingyu could not hide a sense of shame. Candy is indeed twice as sweet. But this kind of action is really too shameful. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully causing the powerful Empress Qingyu to lose her mind and obtain system rewards, skill points at 36. The system prompts that the host's skill points have accumulated to 267. Nai Chen smiled slightly and sat side by side on the lawn with Chu Qingyu. There is still a faint sweet smell floating in the mouth. The warm breeze blew through her, making her hair sultry. The flowers and plants dancing in the wind seem to be moving with the music, and the blue sky is like a picture dyed with ink. Even if they didn't do anything, they just felt the sweet taste left in their mouths and held each other's hands. This minute, this second, seems extremely sweet and precious. I really admire you, you can always come up with such weird things. Chu Qingyu finally showed a smile. It looked like he was resentful, but actually he was in a pretty good mood. If possible, she would even be willing to sit with Nai Chen for a while longer in this environment. Of course, I wouldn't mind if there was a flower saint tied to the tree. Oh yes, and put a piece of underwear in the mouth of the saint of flowers to prevent her from crying. But wife, when are you going to leave for the Emperor's mausoleum? This matter may not be delayed for long. Just then, Nai Chen's voice suddenly sounded from his ear. The Emperor's mausoleum. Chu Qingyu looked at the blue sky. Occasionally, raindrops floated by, and the sky seemed as soft as cotton candy. Everything seemed peaceful, and it was so peaceful that people could not help but indulge in it. However, she knew very well that once something happened in the Emperor's mausoleum, I am afraid that the entire Lanchuan continent will fall into disaster. No matter what, all the things in the Emperor's mausoleum must be solved, and no hidden dangers must be left. This is not only to comfort the countless great Emperor ancestors buried there, but also related to the safety of the entire Lanchuan continent. The matter of the emperor's mausoleum must not be underestimated. Tomorrow, or maybe a few days later, it will be time to call on all the cultivators in the world to go to the imperial mausoleum. Whatever is in the imperial mausoleum now, it must be resolved. Chu Qingyu answered slowly. There was a bit of solemnity and coldness in her voice. The invisible and majestic power of the emperor was floating around. Under this awe-inspiring majesty, even leaves slowly fell down. Nai Chen nodded. He knew very well that the dragon blood formation and Ao Ian's father Ao Gu. This extremely mysterious imperial mausoleum still hides many secrets. These undercurrents may erupt at any time, and even endanger the Lanchuan continent. Shock, the love letter was sent to the empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 301. It was getting late, and the last ray of the setting sun slowly dimmed. However, the flower holy land still seems to be in a joyful atmosphere at this moment. A bonfire burned in the distance, and from time to time female disciples' excited singing echoed. The soft and cool body next to her carries a hint of refreshing orchid fragrance, which makes people feel intoxicated. Honey, tonight, do you want to stay in the holy land of flowers first? Nai Chen smiled slightly. He had just obtained the beast elixir of the sand crab beast king in the forbidden desert area. This time, he was quite confident. Today, let's forget it for today. Chu Qingyu looked a little shy, but refused. This answer was slightly beyond Nai Chen's expectations. After all, the recent empress has always been a bit unsatisfied, ahem. Seemingly worried that Nai Chen would misunderstand, Chu Qingyu quickly wanted to explain. Because, I have to go to another place today. When the words came to her lips, Chu Qingyu's voice turned out to be a little deeper. She walked to the peak alone and looked up at the dark night sky. The bright moonlight shone down, softly falling on her body. A gust of evening wind blew by, and the 3,000 green silk hair and the light blue fairy skirt were swaying gently in the wind. His eyes were watery and a little cold. The skin is as bright as snow, with a hint of pink in the snow-white color. The slender waist is not too tight, and the slender and even jade-like body is exposed, as if it has a seductive enchantment. The moonlight shrouded her, and her beautiful face seemed to be otherworldly. However, in addition to the coldness, there is also a hint of undetectable sadness. Strangeness. Nai Chen also realized that something was a little unusual. For so long, he had never seen Chu Qingyu showing such sadness. And what exactly did she mean by going to another place just now? At this moment, a voice floated quietly from a distance and landed next to Nai Chen. The golden hair has a hint of enchantment. This figure is none other than the flower saint. But this time, there was no sense of joke in the past. The flower saint quietly stared at Chu Qingyu standing alone on the mountain peak, silently. She seemed to know something. Boom, boom. At this moment, a melodious bell echoed in the distance. The sound of this bell symbolizes the arrival of early morning. Chu Qingyu looked back at Nai Chen, with a hint of tenderness in her cold eyes. But with the sound of the bell, she rose into the air and flew into the distance. Where is the empress going? Looking at Chu Qingyu's retreating figure, Nai Chen couldn't help but ask. To pay homage to an old friend. The flower saint replied softly. Old friend. After obviously hesitating for a moment, the flower saint decided to tell the truth. Actually, Qingyu didn't have such smooth sailing before she became the empress. Qingyu's qualifications and talents were indeed one of the best in the entire Lanchuan continent. Even some of the most famous sons of genius at that time were completely unable to compare with her. But just when her strength was recognized by countless people in the world, Qingyu's parents, who were both emperors, disappeared at the same time. The empress's parents are both great emperors. This sentence made Nai Chen a little surprised. After all, on the Lanchuan continent, how rare and powerful the emperor is. The total number of powerful emperors in the entire continent is only a dozen. As for the situation where both parents are emperors, it is almost unheard of. Well, initially everything went smoothly for King Yu, whose parents were both emperors. Not only is her talent among the best in Lanchuan continent, but her parents love her as their only daughter. But, having said this, the flower saintess sighed, obviously a little sad. Nai Chen could tell that although the empress often bullied the flower saint, she even spanked her countless times. But the relationship between the two of them is much closer than it appears on the surface. At this time, the Blossom Saint Maiden continued softly. Since King Yu's parents disappeared inexplicably, her situation has become increasingly worse. Although the Chu couple were both powerful emperors and even dominated the Lanchuan continent for a while, they did not create any power of their own. Because of this, after the two of them disappeared, no one took action to protect King Yu. King Yu, whose talents far surpassed countless geniuses in the world, was ostracized, jealous and coveted by countless people because she had no one to protect her. Not only did life become more and more difficult, but he even almost died many times. Until she appeared. Well, the one who helped King Yu was the nether princess of the underworld, Yu Qian. She used the power of the underworld to transform into a clone of herself and appeared in Lanchuan continent. He helped King Yu go through the most difficult period until she reached the sea-opening realm, and then left one day. From then on, King Yu seemed to have completely awakened, constantly working hard to achieve breakthroughs in cultivation, and single-handedly established the Xiatianyuan Palace. Not only did he enter the realm of great emperors and become one of the strongest emperors on the Lanchuan continent, he also expanded the power of Tianyuan Palace to what it is today. It is precisely because of this that those three guys 100 years ago were so afraid of King Yu and tried to prevent Tianyuan Palace from continuing to grow. After saying this, the flower saint looked at Chu King Yu's figure gradually disappearing in the distant sky, showing a hint of distress. Yukin. Nai Chen instantly recalled the fate he had forged with his sword in the Holy Land of Bones. He did not expect that this nether princess would have such a relationship with Chu King Yu. And he transformed into a clone from the underworld just to help Chu King Yu. This kind of thing is indeed somewhat unimaginable. No wonder the Empress misses this old friend so much. Thank you, Saint, for telling me this. Nai Chen smiled slightly to express his gratitude, and casually asked. By the way, how does the candy that Love Flower was rewarded taste like? Is it sweet? Why do you suddenly ask this? The Blossom Saint showed a trace of panic for a moment and quickly rejected. All right, it's okay. It's just an ordinary candy. Maybe it's a treasure worse than pebbles. That's right, that's really a pity. Hearing this, Nai Chen couldn't help but smile. Under the moonlight, the flower saint turned her head, her eyes gurgling like running water, and she felt as if there was some guilt in her heart. By the way, if you want to see the King Yu memorial ceremony, I can take you with me. As if to change the subject, she suddenly said. May I? Well, King Yu has never had any hidden thoughts about this old friend. The two communicated for a moment, and soon they stood up in unison and headed towards the direction where Chu King Yu just disappeared.